there's a big change from 1974 to now, that's for sure. But if you want to remember, you're only 2 years old at the time, and now you're 50. Things have changed. The industry itself has changed a lot over the years. I don't know. I never envisioned the company being this size, but I never did want it to be the biggest company. I just wanted to be one of amongst the best. I think that has been accomplished. I'm proud about the reputation the company's got and how it's presented itself in the community. Like it's you can't talk to anybody that hasn't got nice things to say about GS Construction and what I like about it too is that none of the people that I know here are confrontational. They seem to all work mesh together and pulling the same rope together and stuff like that, and which has got to augur well for the company. It's everybody's working for one end. And everybody you talk to enjoys working here. So it's just people say they can get up in the morning and they're anxious to go to work and looking forward to go to work. That augurs well for morale and everything else in the company. I always wanted to have a construction company. It was going to have to be a lot rougher road than that to make me give it up. Well, I had a cousin by the name of Aubrey Wasson, and when they were building the bypass around the city of Fredericton in New Brunswick, we went out on his job site one day, and they had just set off a big blast of blow some rock, and a chunk of rock went up, came down through the roof of a house. Had a Hudson car, and I remember him going through mud holes with it and stuff like that. And out on this job site, this equipment working. So it was that interested me, and then working with the New Brunswick Telephone Company, doing their utility, the installation of it's just something that I liked to do. I only went to the University of New Brunswick for 1 year, and that was basically to socialize. And when I went out doing pipe work and stuff like this, I was an inspector with the New Brunswick Telephone Company, putting underground conduit in for telephone lines. So I got to read specs there. I had lots of times to go through and one particular contractor, I saved him a lot of money because he was interpreting the contract one way and it was written another way. And in the end of it, he ended up getting a bunch of extra money that he shouldn't have got, or he wouldn't have got if it had been somebody that didn't understand the specs, you know. The funny part about it, he ended up wanting to buy me a vehicle, a new car, because I saved him this money. I got this extra money for him. And I wouldn't take it. I said, no way. You're not. I learned that the big print giveth and the small print taketh away. So you have to read it from pretty well. And I'm not going to mention the contractor's name, but every time that they would do a job, the next job would come out the specs would be changed because they would interpret things different than what was intended in the specs, and it made it difficult for the rest of us. But And practically every time you have to go through the spec to see if there's any additional clauses or anything that might have a detrimental effect on what your bottom line is going to be. But my main motivation at the time was to make a decent living for my family and end up raising 4 kids. And there was lots of little bumps along the way, but some of the things that I went through, I hope that you and the team you have today never have to go through. You do what you got to do. There was times there was a 2-month period that I never took a paycheck. I think that during that time, if you can remember, there was a moose across the road on a Sunday afternoon. I shot the moose so we could have some meat to eat. So, out of season, but you do what you got to do. It wasn't easy when you had the 4 kids, and you all were in competitive, um, sports, double A and hockey and ringette, all different teams. Debbie and I were on the road a lot, wore out some vehicles. During the 80s, when Pierre Trudeau introduced the National Energy Program, and there was company after company after company going broke in Alberta. The Americans were coming up here and buying their practically new equipment for 30 cents on the dollar and stuff like that at the auction sales. But through the 80s, for the most part, I ran the hoe, ran the crew, would go home at night and code paperwork, and bid on jobs. There's lots of times I wouldn't get to bed until 2:30 in the morning, and be back up to go to work again for 7. So no, I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody, but I wasn't going to let the company go under neither. So I've done what I had to. Well, there wasn't a job that in the 80s that I did that I didn't make some money on it. And the reason for that is that I always ran 1 or 2 guys short on the crew, so that everybody always had something to do all the time. And I'd done so much of the work myself, like doing my own mechanic work and working on the machine. I like after hours or whatever, if the hole broke down, or replacing the hydraulic lines, or there was only one pickup on the job, and that was one I drove. Back in the 80s, in the 86, Kiewit had a job at Entwistle, and I had a contract with Alberta Transportation to put storm sewer line in along the same project. My price on that job was $200,000. The next price was $320,000. So at that particular time, there was a lot of money that was left on the table. And when I was doing the Alberta Transportations applied the materials, so it was just labor and equipment rentals. When I was doing the job, Kiewit would come and take pictures of what doing, and finally one day I caught the guy and I said, "What are you doing that for?" He says, "My office has instructed me to find out how you can bid this job so cheap." And I said, "It's easy. Just look around. There's only one pickup." I said, "I've got the pipe layer when he has a chance, he runs a packer and stuff like this. So people are doing things, you know. I said if Key was here, there'd be 5 or 6 pickups and stuff like this. So it's not easy. It's not hard to figure out how I can do it. My first job was in Hinton, and I I had $1,500 in cash to start with. I wanted to bid this job, and I went to North American Road at the time, Ivan Gwen, and asked him if he would bond me. Well, Ivan didn't know me, but he knew my brother. And so they said, agreed to it, and the first job was a $420,000 job in Hinton. And of course, it paid a hefty fee for the bonding and stuff like that, but I made some good money on that. And, you know, I couldn't imagine you could make that kind of money but in a year type of thing. But anyway, play it forward. I tried to help people out that I could. I'd like to think that I helped Precision Trenching out a bit, Streamline, ACL Transport, Can Supply. I worked with all those guys, and I have a great relationship even today with them. So some of them were competitors, but that I kind of enjoyed that, having competitors that that done good work, and I think that augurs well for the industry and keeps people honest. I just thought it was better that if people got along and worked together, and I never tried to steal people from other companies, or though I was accused of it a couple of times, but I never did, never tried. And I just think it's better if people get along and not at each other's throats and stabbing each other in the back. There's lots of work out there there's no such thing as a bad job, it's just a poor price. You can do anything if you have the right money on it. And no two people look at a job the same way. I can see something and do something. And what I liked about bidding, if there was a difficult job, if there's something like a tunneling underneath the railroad tracks and gravel or something like that, or having to lower pipe over a bank with a helicopter, or things like that. And I liked work like that. You have to put your thinking hat on and come up with think outside the box and get things done. It's not and if things get a little tough, you don't go cheap on something. You pour some more money at it or more effort at it. So you don't back off. You tell somebody you're going to do something or sign your name to a piece of paper that you're going to do a job, you do it. So do it right. If you don't make any money at it the first time, you won't make any money doing it over again. So, but over the years, I don't know, there's not much I would change if I could, but there's some rough spots I wouldn't have wanted to go through again, but if I had to, I could, or would. No, I never left a job that I wasn't happy with. And I think that's a key too, to be be happy with what you get done during the day if it's done right. You know, if you do it right, you don't have to worry about what other people think. In the industry, I've worked in every province in Canada except Newfoundland and Quebec. And that includes both territories, the Yukon and the Northwest Territories. Had a major job in '76 in Whitehorse, the 225 lot subdivision. I bought a 245 cat excavator from R. Angus at the time, and we had to break it down into 3 loads to get it up to the Yukon. The car body went on 1 load, the counterweight and the counterweight and the boom went on another load, and the track group went on another load. So and I had to drive up the Alaska Highway. That wasn't very pretty, that highway at the time. One of the jobs that stands out is a job that we had at Sucker Creek. It was a raw water intake line that went out in Slave Lake, 4 kilometers out. And, there's a picture on the wall about we're low on the inlet structure into the lake. We're out on, we've had to build the ice up to carry the equipment to 42 inches thick. It was a kind of interesting job. Every night that I talked to the wife, she said, well, how much closer are you to shore than to get off the lake? And it was an interesting job. You get out there and it was minus 20 and the wind blowing, and you couldn't see land, you couldn't see where the shore was. The snow drifting, and Tran didn't even want to bid the job to start with. So, and he told me, if you get it, you have to go and do it. So I ended up having to go do the job. And there was one guy walked off the job because he was scared of the ice. He thought I was crazy. Maybe I was, but we made some good coin on that job. We left a lot of money on the table. Our price was 4.3 million, and second bidder was 7.6. The third bidder was 9.8. And the third bidder is out of business today. And he informed me he never saw such a stupid price in all his life. But I think if we had 1 or 2 of those jobs a year, that's all you'd need. To start off, it didn't start off just exactly the way I wanted it to. I told, we had a D6 doing some work for us, and I told him to stay off the ice, stay out, not to go out on the lake with the 6. And I hadn't been to a ringette tournament for a while, so I went to Red Deer to a ringette tournament, and they were supposed to be doing some snow removal and stuff like that on the job site. And I get a phone call. The D6 has gone through the ice. What do you do? So I phoned this guy at High Prairie that had a bunch of rig mats, and he worked at the oil field. So I asked him to go and take a look at it and see what he could do. So he moved in some rig mats and a crane and or a winch tractor, and was able to get the D6 out. But in the meantime, there was a guy by the name of Roger Badger, a native guy, had a skid steer, and he went out on the ice, and he broke through. So it cost GS $76,000 to get them out. But we more than made up for it. I had to work a little harder, a little longer. Anyway, we had it set up so that nobody could go out on the ice. They had the checkpoints, made everybody leave their cell phones except for the foreman and the excavator operator at the shoreline. You had to have a certain number of natives working for us. Bought everybody survival suits at $550 a piece. That they had to wear them when they were out on the ice. We had to put a wet well in on to tie the line into, and had to go down 36 feet deep, and it was all in wet sandy soil. Until we got to the very bottom, and we were in 2 feet of blue clay, and the way that I had set it, the barrels that sealed everything off, and we never had a drop of water inside the barrels. So when we had to get it all cleaned out, got the base poured, I think that's one of the reasons we made some pretty good going on it, because those barrels went in 2 days, where if you'd had to excavate it, it'd probably take you a week just to excavate the hole, and then you'd had bumps, and you wouldn't have been able to use the drag line to excavate it. I had a special cage made or boxed so that when we ran the pipe through it, it came out at the bottom there was enough pressure on it. There was 1,700 pounds pushing down on the pipe. It had big truck tires, duals, and that's what forced the pipe down. And of course, we had counterweights, everything on the pipe as it was going in. And I was kind of happy because when they sent the divers down to check to see what the pipe looked like on the bottom of the lake, they said everything was just absolutely perfectly straight, and there was no humps or anything. And that's one of the problems that happens if you just let the pipe sink. You could have air pockets, and you could have humps in the line, restrict your flow of water, and but we had to have it a certain depth all the way into the wet well. We made the inlet structure right here in the shop. The Entwistle job where I was laying pipe with a helicopter. That was interesting. I don't know if anybody else has done that. Yeah, it was out too far for. Well, could have got a crane big enough to lift but it would cost $8,700 to move the crane from Edmonton to there and rig it up ready to go, and $8,700 to take it down again and bring it back, and $450 an hour, and minimum minimum 4 hours if I fired it up to move. And I got a helicopter at $1,605 an hour, and we lowered all the pipe down that we needed, and including the rebar and stuff we needed for an outlet chamber, an outlet. There was my bill was something like $3,400 for the helicopter, and that included ferrying time from Edmonton out to do the work and back in. We had everything all set up so that it just pick on up, set back and forth, back and forth. He had 20 lists, 20 that he had to make. So that was interesting. People were safety conscious, but lots of times you didn't wear a hard hat or didn't have a safety vest on or whatever. But I always made a policy that I'd never ask anybody to do something or go anywhere that I wouldn't go myself. I was digging in Hinton, about 26 feet deep, and it was sandy banks and stuff like this, tight area. And there was a little bit of water at the bottom of the excavation, and I was down getting ready to put a piece of pipe in when a section of the bank came down, and I got buried up to past my waist. And you could see that there was another big glob of dirt ready to come. So, but that was scary there. And another time was that I had a nephew that was down in a new manhole that we put in. We was mortaring up the inlet and outlet structure or pipe on it. And there was a pile of crushed, and one of the operators came to get a bucket of this crushed, and he pushed the crushed over the top of the manhole that was a flat top, and all the dirt went down in on top of him and pinned him inside the manhole. And as luck would have it, he had his hard hat on, and it fell over his face and everything, and he was completely buried in gravel in this manhole. People were trying to scoop some material out by hand, but they were knocking more stuff in than there was. So I grabbed a shovel and started shoveling off the top to lift the lid off the manhole. And somebody was saying, "What are you going to try to do? Kill him? Whatever." Sat down and I just said, "You better not be here when I get done." So anyway, I got the top off the manhole, and then you have a 48-inch manhole barrel that you can. So we got the stuff dug out around his face and everything, so he could breathe again properly, and then kept on getting material, and finally we got him out and took him to the hospital to have him checked out to see if there's any broken bones or anything, and of course there was none. So I bought him a Mickey of whiskey and told him to take the rest of the day off. So, but that was the closest I think I ever came to losing anybody. Going from cable controlled excavators to hydraulic. That gave you much more control over what your. Some of the first hydraulics were a little iffy, but everything for the most part today is pretty smooth. But there's very few people out there today can say that they've worked with a cable controlled backhoes and with all wire line, wire rope, pulling the bucket in, the dipper arm, lifting the boom and stuff like that. You get digging 18 and 20 feet deep with those, it's slower than death on crutches. But back then they were quite a machine. Surround yourself with good people, like-minded. That you don't need people that are confrontational. And you don't need people that get complacent. Complacency is probably one of the biggest enemies of any company. Well, I wish GS nothing but the best in the future, and I hope it continues to grow, and it's a lot bigger now than I ever imagined it would be. It's a lot bigger now than whatever I would have wanted it to be. Like